Welcome to Being Intrepid, where we share practical insights from leaders shaping the future of talent and learning. I'm your host, Sam Herring. Over the past 2 decades, I've built companies that help people learn and organizations thrive. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Matt Stevens. Matt is Managing Director and Marketing Offering Leader for Human Performance and Learning at Deloitte Consulting. Deloitte Consulting is a global professional services firm that helps organizations address complex business challenges by providing strategy, technology, operations, and human capital consulting services. In his role, Matt leads Deloitte's consulting practice for workforce learning clients across North America. He's also the former head of learning and leadership development for two Fortune 150 companies. In these roles, Matt designed and deployed ATD Best Award winning programs. Matt, welcome to Being Intrepid.
Thank you, Sam. Happy to chat with you today.
Looking forward to it. Matt, we've known each other a long time, so this is going to be a familiar chat for us. We're just putting the video and the mic in front of us. So looking forward to it.
Indeed.
Matt, through the intro, obviously you're a veteran leader in workforce transformation and learning. I'm just curious, as we think about what inspired your career and a focus on talent and learning.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked the question, Sam, because it's kind of a funny story. It dates back to my undergraduate education, and I originally started down the path as a marketing major, but there was a moment in time at the university I attended, which is the University of Richmond, go
Hmm.
Spiders, and a very, a benefactor contributed a lot of money to open a new school to study at the undergraduate level, something that was completely brand new across the country, and that was leadership.
Hmm.
And so I shifted gears from the business school to the school of leadership. And
Hmm.
it was a bit of uncharted territory, like no one knew whether that was an employable degree or not. But what it afforded me was the opportunity to do several internship experiences in
Okay.
leadership development. And so, as an undergrad, junior in college, I had the chance to help a family-owned grocery chain to infuse the latest leadership theories and thinking into their frontline, front of the store manager training. I
Yeah.
helped a pharmaceutical sales company to bring some leadership theory to a sales conference that they were running. So just these
Amazing.
were really informative to me because I had never really thought about that as something I might be interested in doing in my career. But
Right.
then it was so exciting and was so interesting to me that it sparked that thought. And, it didn't happen immediately for me. Once I graduated, I fell back on my marketing minor
Okay.
and,
Okay.
and went to work for a company in a marketing capacity. But, over time, found myself drawn back into that space, first with
Right.
employee training and then ultimately leadership development. Um,
Right.
so, and so it was, it felt full circle to me. It felt very
Yeah.
fateful to me to come back into that space. And I've since then spent probably about 25 years in this space of learning and talent development in one form or another. And then
Yeah.
just to add on to that, I know you didn't ask it exactly, Sam, but what keeps me there all these years
Love it.
is this intersection of what's good for the organization and what's
Hmm.
good for the individual at the
Hmm.
organization. I
Hmm.
find it really compelling. I find it really rewarding to be able to work for companies that where I'm not only helping them to improve their business results through
Yeah.
talent development, but every individual has a positive impact from that. They're either growing
Yeah.
skills to get better at the job they're in or to
Yeah.
better their career and advance their career, either at that organization or elsewhere. And so for me, it's the draw that keeps me
Yeah.
in this game for so long.
Well, you've got that double bottom line, that you can help clients deliver and help people meaningfully grow their skills. And we all know that, when you're tackling a business problem, leadership is either, the number one or maybe the number two challenge you got to focus on executing. So,
That's right.
um,
That's right. And
um,
and by the way, credit to all my professors in undergrad because what really happened is these companies called them to get some
Yes.
consulting on the side, and they said, you can't afford us, but here's some free student help.
That is, I mean, what an opportunity as an undergrad to have that kind of exposure with the consulting and just hands-on practice and application.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That's amazing. So Matt, you stepped into your leadership role, leading the human performance and learning practice last year. And suffice it to say, this is a time of tremendous change, technology, economic, sociopolitical, so on. Um, I'm just really curious, can you kind of orient our listeners? Tell us about the types of client organizations you work with, and what are the most pressing talent and learning challenges that are showing up for them in this moment?
Yeah, sure thing, Sam. So, my work experience prior to joining Deloitte was all in financial services. So I naturally get drawn back to supporting financial services organizations.
Hmm.
It's kind of in my blood.
Hmm.
But in the past 5 or 6 years, I've personally in market shifted gears to focusing a lot more on healthcare
Okay.
clients, and in particular, the health systems, the provider side of healthcare,
Yeah.
partially because that's a sector where talent gaps persist, right?
Hmm.
Clinical talent is constantly in short supply. And so these are organizations that are really ripe with interest and need to have creative talent development approaches to help fill
Hmm.
their own talent pipelines. And then naturally, I find it really compelling because very mission-oriented organization, if
Yes.
you're building future healthcare providers and leaders, that it's for the greater good of the
Yeah, absolutely.
community. So,
Yeah.
and then in my role as the offering lead now, I find myself working even more cross industry, and
Okay.
where the needs arise and opportunities for me to join organizations outside of the context of those two. But those are the spaces that I
Hmm.
primarily have focused in.
Okay.
But the thing I find is pretty consistent, Sam, regardless of the industry, is some of the challenges and opportunities that clients are facing. I gave a presentation to a group of CEOs, financial services CEOs, earlier this week, and
Okay.
what we talked about there was how talent development and upskilling and reskilling is actually a key to competitive advantage these days.
Hmm.
Organizations that are not investing in the growth and development of their workforce, are finding themselves significantly disadvantaged, in
Hmm.
part because there's such a demand from the employee population themselves.
Hmm.
Expectation of career development is, right up there amongst or higher
Yeah.
than compensation, number
Yep.
one. And number two, if employers don't do it, they're doing it themselves. And
Hmm.
so,
Hmm.
there's an abundance of this is the newest entrance to the workforce or of a generation that, used Khan Academy, that uses
Yeah.
YouTube,
Yep.
and increasingly now are using AI tools to get
Yep.
the skills that they need. And so it's imperative for organizations to lock in on that, and control the narrative about the skills that they need to be
Right.
building and the
Right.
approaches that they prefer to use within the organization. So, but universally, I see the key challenges for organizations cross industry now as the upskilling and reskilling of the workforce to adapt to AI. It's
Hmm.
the biggest disruption in decades, maybe
Hmm.
maybe centuries. So,
Yeah.
that either means building the AI technical skills or just responding to changes to their job role based on the very nature of work itself changing,
Right.
because of the AI, invention that's happening there. So that's number one. And then number two, and kind of corresponding to that is, I see the learning and development organization also
Yep.
working to reinvent itself, to
Yep.
modernize its own approaches,
Yep.
and to drive efficiency, to create resiliency, and then just to be even more responsive to business needs.
Awesome. So, how is Deloitte adapting services and solutions to meet these priorities of the day, the upskilling, reskilling, the embedding AI in the role of in every role essentially. So
Right. Right.
yeah,
Um, yeah, great question. So, there are there are two elements to this that I think are most prominent with client organizations. Number one is the need to be responsive to the ever decreasing half-life of a skill.
yep,
You can no longer run a learning program and have that be your, once every 5 years, not even
yep,
once a year, right? The need for continuous upskilling is driven by the pace of change in technology.
yep.
Number two is the focus on skills versus training to a job role description,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And that's been happening for probably the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, even a move towards a more skill-based approach. And so, with both of those things, Deloitte has introduced new services. Along part of my practice in learning is a skills approach where we help clients
Hmm.
define
Hmm.
skill
Hmm.
strategies, help them roll out
Yep.
tools to be able to measure and assess skills, et cetera. Measurement and data is the other sort of change, right? Measurement of learning intervention has long been the holy grail for most client, and even when I was in industry, I was sort of that grail we were reaching for, but never quite did. But
Right.
now, among the things that we're doing differently is helping bring that into focus through technology and through helping clients to link together what had
Yeah.
previously been disparate talent systems to
Hmm.
create more robust data sets that allow them to make better informed decisions. And then lastly, I would say that we are changing a bit in our approach to be not only advise type of consulting solution, but
Yeah.
also a mix of product oriented solutions, whether they be our own native products or whether they be through our cherished alliance relationships, such as the one we have with Intrepid, to bring a mix of products and services to light to help
Yeah.
fulfill on those strategies.
Perfect, perfect. And let's go there. Let's double click on that a little bit. So
Okay.
so I mean we deeply value our partnership with Deloitte, Matt, and our relationship with you in particular. And over the years we've done some work with kind of supporting, enabling bespoke, solutions, which of course are part of many consulting engagements. But you have one particular tranche or offering here that you call the Deloitte Academies, which are these productized capabilities to upskill client workforces in a range of different domains. Can you tell us about what the academies are and really how are they different from traditional consulting on the one hand and off-the-shelf catalog type of offering on the other? What are the academies and what's that unique value prop?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Great question, and thanks for the plug on Deloitte Academies. Yeah, so here's how it's just to pull that thread a little bit on kind of like
Yeah.
products and services.
Yeah.
I would say that for efficiency purposes and for scalability from an affordability standpoint,
Hmm.
there is a lot of demand from clients that we have more of a SKU-based service offering, right?
Yep. Yep.
And yet to the comment you made about off the shelf, our academies are a learning-based solution to building skills and capabilities in key areas that are of need and interest to many organizations across a wide array of industries. They are not entirely off the shelf. In fact,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
formula is probably something more akin to the 80/20,
Yeah.
where the standardized content allows us to deploy quickly and it
Yep.
allows us to deploy more affordably, where the 20% is really tailoring that to the specific needs of that organization and that industry and allowing for, elements of, the leader of that organization to have a real voice and fingerprints
Yeah.
on the content and the rollout of it. So,
Yeah.
but we also like to wrap that with our services, which is to say that we have rolled out academies to clients that include the associated work with revisiting what the skills requirements for certain jobs are. So not just a one size fits all, but how do we leverage
Yeah.
academy offerings to upskill the workforce, but also build in sustainment by helping them to reshape the skills requirements and the job architecture associated with those roles that are in target, as an example.
Yeah.
And so it's what we see, and I can share, a couple of examples here, but what we see is that the academy for us actually has been kind of a door opener to many other
Mm,
conversations,
mm,
even
mm, mm,
outside
mhm.
of human capital
Yeah.
with these clients, because so many organizations are still in the space where the AI strategy is fairly nascent for them.
Yep. Yep.
And what we found, and I'm thinking about one client in particular who was, they're very they're very sort of sage CEO said, we're trying to define our strategy around AI. We have some principles around it, but I think that we need to align as a full leadership team on what the power of it could be and use that to set some parameters around how we govern it, how we fund it, and so on and so forth. And so the rollout for our Academy for AI at that organization literally started with a workshop for the CEO and
Yep.
his, +2 population, and then from there cascaded down deeper into the organization. But we
Yeah.
leveraged those initial learning sessions um, to where, by the way, what we're doing is bringing a mix of expertise from Deloitte as
Yep.
well as some of our mutual partners that we have with these clients. You can imagine some of the AI providers and cloud providers that we're
Sure.
all working with,
Yeah.
coming together to form sort of an expert faculty, if you will.
Nice.
And that learning experience helped them to drive more concrete decisions about how they would govern it and how they would roll out their adoption approach to the full workforce.
Amazing. So the learning experience becomes the work. It's a way to kind of drive that change and let those leaders set their plans and begin to execute those.
That's exactly right, Sam.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I used AI as the example because it's the ubiquitous learning need
Hmm. Hmm.
everywhere, every time these days. But our academies also include other workforce and leadership, Change Academy, an
Yeah.
academy for leaders at multiple levels, for example, a product management academy, and several others.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's talk about AI a bit. Love to hear your perspective because you're working across many clients, and I think there's kind of two lenses here we can talk about. One is the AI upskilling, AI adoption, AI strategy, and then the other is how organizations are using AI to advance and make learning a better experience. Using AI in learning. So let's start with the first. Like, where do you see organizations struggling with enterprise AI adoption, maybe perhaps moving from pilot to true enterprise solutions?
Yeah. Um, so our studies have shown that most organizations, the percentage of spend on AI is 93% the
Mm.
technology and
Hmm.
only 7% on the workforce or other elements of adoption.
Okay.
And yet what we know is that the investment in AI is falling short of leaders' expectations of what they envisioned that it would produce in terms of things such as productivity.
Hmm.
And so it's our position that the we need to flip the script a little bit, or at least level out that investment
Yeah.
and make a more significant portion of it towards the workforce.
Hmm.
And so I think that's the struggle that we're seeing in a number of client organizations, is thinking that the technology itself will be a silver bullet,
Hmm.
and underestimating the power of the workforce for two reasons, I would argue. Number one, being trust or the lack thereof, right? And I think that our data also shows that employee trust in the use of AI is low across
Yep.
organizations.
Yep.
I don't have a specific stat to cite, but it's low. And in both in regard to like how is the data being used? Can we trust the output, the so-called prevalence of work slop produced by
Yep. Yep.
AI, all of those things, but also trust in organizational leadership around the use of AI, i.e., is this going to, am I effectively working myself out of a job?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
is this going to be my replacement? And what we found to be really powerful is, again, that a, a learning approach to the rollout and adoption of AI as a cornerstone of the approach to adoption is
Hmm.
absolutely essential because it's a vehicle to allow leadership to be open and transparent. We have one client who made it very well known that they themselves were going through as an executive leadership team a learning experience so they could be better informed about what it is that it's possible to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
and putting that on display and kind of creating that sort of vulnerability and transparency
Yep.
has helped to build more trust within the organization. Number one, and number two, we see things such as organizations who, they may have been hosting promptathons for the past 18 months, but maybe they're only doing it within their technology function, right?
Hmm.
And so I've seen another client who said, why are we limiting it to that function? Let's use that education lever as a way to expand this
Yeah.
and open it up to, employees across the organization so that they can see that they can actually be part of the solution and they get personal benefit out of it. It makes their work easier.
Yeah.
And it's created a proliferation of use cases now to go into their governance system to be vetted as potential, productivity savers or revenue generators for the organization. And the catalyst for that in each of those examples has been some aspect of developing some skill and capability within the workforce.
Yeah, yeah, man. There's a lot that resonates there. I mean, one was just happened to be skimming the headlines of the Wall Street Journal today, and there was an article on uh, training your AI replacement. So that's a real concern. It kind of echoes back
Yes.
to the offshore wave,
Right.
a while back. So, and another thing you said too about are leaders themselves fluent in AI? Are they using
Yeah.
AI, or is it just, hey, we should be using this to drive change in the organization? It reminds me of a conversation I had this week with a an upcoming guest on the podcast, and we were
Yeah.
talking in a tech organization, talking about, there's a lot of leaders in tech organizations that are not fluent in AI. So it
Right.
is it's Dr. Heal thyself, right? Like you gotta
Right.
you gotta demonstrate it from the top. So a
Right.
lot of wisdom there, Matt.
Yeah. Hey, Sam, there's one other thing that I'd like to mention here in terms of
Mhm.
that struggle. So even where organizations are putting some investment into developing the workforce, a caution that I would offer is
Mm.
it needs to also be balanced between building the AI and technical skill, prompt writing,
Yeah.
data interpretation, like those kinds of things, with the fundamental human skills that
Yep.
complement that, right?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
that is equally, if not more important. And
Hmm.
so, fortunately, I do see clients that are understanding that while the nature of the work is changing and the pyramid of time spent is sort of being inverted,
Yeah.
and so the human element of the workforce, is now spending more time drawing data insights than they are actually crunching the data, right?
Yep.
Thanks to AI. But in order to be effective at doing that, they need those fundamental skills, human skills around curiosity, around critical thinking, and
Yep.
those sorts of you know exclusively human skills that will
Yep.
complement their digital workforce counterparts.
Yeah, so rich, and I mean, particularly as we think about an AI future world where, if the workforce is engaging with agents and bots and so on, the risk is they become increasingly isolated in that work. I think there's a bridge here to learning as well, like the how we're developing these skills.
Yeah,
And it's close to my heart to have collaborative, human-centered learning experiences for that as well as we're learning these skills. And so it's the skills and it's how we're learning them. So
yeah,
um, can you share a little bit of your vision for how Gen AI will change organizational learning and how we continue to put the human at the center of learning in that context?
yeah, yeah. Thanks. So I think I would say there's really two elements that when I think about kind of the vision for how Gen AI changes organizational learning. One is that AI is the ultimate enabler of learning in the flow of work.
Hmm.
And we've been preaching learning in the flow of work, and platforms like Intrepid have been enabling learning in the flow of work for a long time now, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's now like in turbo mode, right?
Yep.
Because
Yep. Yep.
whether it's an agent that actually cuts across multiple sources of truth and information to create a consolidated and accurate response to a customer question, for example,
Yep.
or whether it's the use of an avatar, such as we're developing for our AI Academy, who is a virtual instructor and a virtual reference guide post
Hmm.
a learning
Hmm.
experience,
Hmm.
or the use of AI for coaching and feedback, right?
Yep.
The
Yep.
ability to make a sales pitch to an AI coach and have it immediately return ideas back to you on how you can improve your pitch. All of those things are happening, within seconds, minutes at the most,
Yep.
and that is really enabling learning in the flow of work to the highest power. And with that, I would say, the what I envision is hyper personalized learning
Yeah.
journeys,
Yeah.
leveraging these tools.
Yep.
And second of all, empowered and self-directed pathways.
Hmm.
So it's not only learning in the flow of work, but it's really enabling, the learner to be in the driver's seat of their own
Yeah.
learning pathways, right? So that
Yep.
the whole notion of personas, now comes down to, an N of one in many ways,
Right.
based on what that individual's background and experience is, and
Right.
based on, their unique role in an organization.
Yep.
So that's sort of one thing. And the second one is that I think that it changes the very nature of the L&D function as well.
Yep. Yep.
And one of my colleagues likes to say it enables you to do things differently and to do different things. And
Yep. Yep. Yep.
meaning, it kind of creates, it means that the role of L&D becomes to create the conditions and the environment for the enterprise,
Yep.
adopting AI for L&D and by L&D.
Yes, yes, yes. Love that. And the hyper personalization and connecting into the flow is it just reminds me of a call I just got off of with an organization in the hospitality space, and the ability to offer a call center agent, for example, um, the opportunity to practice a scenario or role play, but then just say, hey, I'm going to bring an example of something I just experienced myself on my last call. So
Right.
it's that which is just phenomenal. We're moving to this hyper personalization future, and like you said, embedded in the flow. It just becomes the way you practice, the way you build skills.
That's right.
Um, for organizations that are kind of struggling, maybe they've got, different, they've cast different lines out there. It's a little chaotic in terms of what they're doing with Gen AI. What are the key components of an effective Gen AI strategy, and how do you advise organizations to get started? I mean, it's not like most organizations are doing something right now, but how do they kind of get their arms around it and create a cohesive strategy?
Yeah. Sorry, Sam, for the L&D organization, you mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for a
Okay.
cohesive Gen AI
Yeah.
strategy for L&D. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so, I think that first of all, the biggest risk of AI for the L&D professional is not embracing AI.
yep,
That
yep,
the risk is to not change. The
yeah,
opportunity is abundant, right? And like anyone
yeah,
who's, in that trust question mark space, questioning whether puts their role at risk, I would say marginal risk of that. But I think what we really are seeing is the need for the L&D organization to simply embrace it.
yeah,
And I think I would say this. I think it always comes down to, and of course the consultant would say this, it always comes down to sort of the strategic choice cascade, right?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
like you've got to make the decisions about where you're going to play. I'm working with a client
yeah.
right now. We've got a workshop coming up next week in which we're revisiting those fundamental questions about who is your customer? Is it
Hmm.
the learner? Is it the
Hmm.
business leader of that function?
Hmm.
Like let's really isolate the question about who you're serving with that
Yep,
L&D strategy
yep,
in order to inform, which opportunities that you might seize on with an AI type of solution. We have some clients who are looking to simply make it more affordable for their organization to drive learning at scale. And that's a certain set of AI tools that can help you to drive that. We have others that are looking to really accelerate the pace at which their workforce grows skills and capabilities on a continuous basis. And that's a slightly different set of AI
yep,
tools that you might employ. So I think for, let's say a chief learning officer or an L&D leader, the most important thing to start with is really just going back to the fundamentals of what is your
yep,
strategy, who are you serving, and what are the objectives that you're trying to drive in the organization? Because it can be incredibly overwhelming. There's so many AI tools and capabilities out there,
yeah,
whether
yeah,
they're the native tools in your organization or whether they're, third parties that are knocking on your door. There are so many options. So, um, so two things about that. So once you kind of are clear on the strategy and what you're trying to achieve with it, then I think that the one fundamental truth that's regardless of the strategy is that an effective in this environment, if they're not going to put themselves at risk, an effective L&D organization has to shift away from the mode of being content provider
yeah,
and one towards true experience design.
yep,
And,
yep,
that means things like making your instructional designers more experienced designers who are
yep,
savvy not only in the technology, but frankly, who are savvy in the data so
yep,
that they can be part of the team that's analyzing real-time data to find insights about what's working, what's not working, the degree to which skills are being applied on the job, et cetera.
right,
Um, so that is one thing. And the second thing I would say is getting really pragmatic about it. And most clients I work with in L&D these days don't have massive budgets for
yeah,
developing the skills in their workforce. So starting really practically with the native tools in your organization. So if
yep,
your company has provisioned some form of chat GPT or even Copilot
hmm,
to your organization, start there
yep,
because the native tools that you have can lend a lot of lift and ability. And for most of us, the most obvious places to start are leveraging AI tools for content development and for some form of the learning administration tasks. And that's a perfectly reasonable place to start there. Start
yep.
with those fundamentals and start with the tools that you already have in hand and test and learn and go from there on up the chain of what's possible. Don't start with the avatar build.
You'll get there, right?
Progress to that. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
okay. Okay, awesome. Well, those are that's a great framework, starting with those first principles around your strategy and those we're leveraging what you have today. So it's such great reminders, Matt. Thank you for that. So, in closing, love to just, and you shared a lot of wisdom there, but maybe at a high level, if you're just, kind of counseling the career of a L&D leader, and in this moment of extreme change, what would be the one thing, the one piece of advice you would ask them to keep in mind? What's that North Star piece of advice that you've learned through your career?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that one, Sam. I'll come to the answer by way of this example.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if we yet in the workforce have, if there's such a thing as an AI native in the way that we used to talk about digital natives, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
My own kids, who the youngest is 20, are all digital natives. But I
Yeah.
actually think, unlike my older 20s kids, my youngest child is effectively an AI native.
Hmm.
And there's really something powerful about that most organizations have an opportunity to embrace.
Mm.
So I'll use myself as an example. I spent about a month or maybe 6 weeks with a brand new hire right out of college to the firm. And we called it reverse mentoring.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
know why we had to qualify it as reverse. He was just a
Yeah.
mentor to me, helping
Yeah.
me learn about what's possible with the tools, the AI tools that we have.
Hmm.
When's best to use this one and when is best to use that one, and what can they do for me, and different things that I never even considered using the tools for.
Right.
So I use that as an example of what my best advice is, and that is to, practice what we preach and
Hmm.
follow our natural propensity for continuous learning. We all have to be learners on an ongoing basis. And there's no better way for us to envision what our organization and organizational leadership needs, but to
Yep.
put ourselves in the position of being open to learning new possibilities and applying those learnings within our respective organizations.
Love that, Matt. That is a perfect wrap to this episode and a hopeful direction for us. So, Matt, for our audience and listeners who want to follow you, follow your thought leadership and so on, and just want to connect with you, what's the best way to connect?
Yeah, absolutely. I try to concentrate most of my efforts on LinkedIn. So please look me up on LinkedIn. It's Matt Stevens, Stevens. And you're welcome, more than welcome to also drop me a note at my Deloitte email address, which we can probably put in the text, but it's
Yes.
MA Stevens at Deloitte. Uh, Either way, you'll probably hear back from me faster through a DM on LinkedIn than my email inbox, which is out of control.
Fair, fair. Well, that's that. Thank you for your generosity there. And so, to our listeners, if you found today's conversation valuable, which I know you did, please, I would just ask, please share it with at least one other person who would benefit, and follow Being Intrepid on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you follow get access to your podcasts. So with that, it's a wrap. And until next time, stay curious, chart your own course, and keep on learning. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.